You probably clicked on this video thinking, aren't all games on Itchio indie games? And to that I say yes, but I needed an excuse to make a video.
Oh no!
So here are the top 10 free indie games on Itchio you don't know about. Deppart Prototype is a first-person horror game with shooter elements where you die in just one hit. The game takes place in a creepy sewer system and you have to figure out how to escape while not dying. You'll find a gun to shoot enemies, a flashlight, and keys to open doors. I especially enjoyed the first-person controls as your gun moves in the direction of your mouse, so your movement and aiming are tied together, which really ramps up the tension during combat. The game also rewards headshots, which you'll come to rely on when multiple enemies are attacking simultaneously. The sound design is brilliant at sustaining suspense, as you'll hear footsteps slosh through the water or the moan of enemies reverberate off the sewer walls in the distance. If you're looking for a tense first-person shooter, then I recommend Deppart Prototype. Saying the Desert Blade is a top-down action RPG that has you explore the world to defeat terrifying enemies. The combat reminds me of Hyper Light Drifter, but more slow and deliberate. You're armed with a sword that has a light and heavy attack for offense and can dodge roll and parry for defense. The level design has you exploring dungeon-like areas, killing enemies along the way as you explore the world for upgrades and shrines that act as checkpoints. There's several enemy types that change up how you approach combat, like ranged enemies you want to take out quickly, or beefier melee enemies that incentivize a more defensive approach. The game finishes with a challenging final boss fight that puts your endurance and pattern recognition skills to the test. If you're looking for an exploration-driven Souls-like game with excellent top-down melee combat, then I recommend Saying the Desert Blade. Blow the Hen Down is a comedic management game where you have to quickly dispose of chickens as they lay eggs and multiply on your ship. This involves you frantically sprinting around the ship, shoving chickens in cannons, or throwing bombs at them so they explode. You're always on the move since they're all over the ship trying to overwhelm you. You go until either the ship sinks from too many chickens or you manage to kill all the chickens and there are no more eggs. If you're looking for a hectic, absurd game, then I recommend Blow the Hen Down. Overgame is a fourth wall-breaking action game where the game developers know you're playing their game as they try to tailor the experience to you. The game first asks you what your name is and what your favorite game is, seemingly to gather some data about you. It then gives you 3 options of game styles you can play in the form of Animal Crossing, Grand Theft Auto, and Dark Souls. They seem somewhat normal at first before the game starts falling apart, adding in lots of chaos. The objective changes many times as the game subjects you to its will. If you're looking for a funny game that will subvert your genre expectations, then I recommend Overgame. Prince Charmless is a 2D platformer where you have to complete levels and perform hygiene routines in order to attract the princess. In the platforming stages, you have to jump over spikes and dodge hazards with your prince, who's always on the move. Once you complete a level, you have to play a minigame where you swap between tools to make the prince more appealing, like brushing his teeth, popping his pimples, and shaving him as he gets uglier every level. Once the timer runs out, the princess will judge his looks, and if he's attractive enough, you'll move on to the next level. Between levels are upgrades you can buy with coins you've collected, like armor that makes him more attractive, or extra health, for example. You also earn power-ups like a double jump and dash that get implemented into the more challenging later stages. If you're looking for a solid 2D platformer with a funny cleaning minigame, then I recommend Prince Charmless. Rublar is a puzzle game where you have to quickly solve puzzles with your stretchy arm before the police come. Each level has a certain amount of gems in it that you have to collect before the timer at the bottom of the screen runs out. This makes for frantically fast-paced levels as you figure out what you need to grab and interact with to get all the gems quickly. The hand is controlled with your mouse, adding to the chaos as you quickly drag and wiggle your mouse around to grab a gem before retracting it and going back for the rest. If you're looking for a fast-paced puzzler with interactive elements, then I recommend Rublar. Light Dancer is a top-down game where you play as an archer who has to fight against shadow enemies while searching for bonfires in the forest. You're armed with a bow and arrow, which you have to collect after shooting. The arrows light both trees and enemies on fire, which is useful not only to see, but because you have to stay in the light to live. You die in one hit from enemies, but bonfire checkpoints are generously placed. You have a useful dodge roll as well, which prevents you from being hit while rolling. Combat is easy, but the loop of dodging enemies while chasing down your arrow is really fun since you're always on the move. If you're looking for a simple top-down combat game, then I recommend Light Dancer. Rhythm Quest is a rhythm-based roguelike where you fight your way through a dungeon full of traps and monsters. It plays similarly to Guitar Hero, where you have to time your key presses when the colored notes line up with the corresponding color at the bottom of the screen. The game differentiates notes by attack, which are the sword notes, and defense, which are the shield notes. Every sword note you hit deals damage to the enemy, and every shield note you hit prevents you from taking damage. Each floor of the game ends in a boss fight, then once defeated you move on to the next floor, which gives you more health, but enemies also get more health and attack, plus the tempo increases, making the game progressively harder until you ultimately lose. If you're looking for a challenging rhythm game, then I recommend Rhythm Quest. Monuments to Guilt is a virtual museum experience that showcases exclusionary architecture design while explaining the impact it has on people. If you don't know what exclusionary architecture is, it's essentially public architecture like benches designed so quote-unquote flawed members of society stay out of sight. Every bench in the game is designed so they can't be lied down on to prevent a homeless person from sleeping there, for example, or people just loitering around too long. And one, ironically, has a statue of a woman skating on it, but the bench itself has skate stops. Each bench has a description stating how it's exclusionary, but it's often subtly built into the design so people don't notice, or it's masked as art. If you're looking for an eye-opening museum experience, then I recommend Monuments to Guilt. Goodbye Doggy is a melancholic puzzle game where you play as a recently deceased dog helping its family deal with their grief. The whole game takes place in a home as you go between rooms figuring out how to make each family member feel better. This involves you helping them complete tasks or finding certain objects for them. The text at the top of the screen is very touching as it tells you how they're feeling and gives you insight into how to make them feel better that serve as hints for the puzzle. If you're looking for a short but very sweet game, then I recommend Goodbye Doggy. Those were the top 10 free indie games on Itchio you didn't know about. I'll have my playlist of free Itchio games you don't know about linked in the description. Thanks for watching, give me money on Patreon, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with this ongoing series.